What's going on, Radiant Youth? My name is Aslan Canchola, and if I haven't met you yet, my husband Sam and I are your Central Youth Directors. There is tons you could be doing on a Wednesday, but you chose to come and hang out with us, and I think that is so awesome. We're gonna have such a great time. Today, we're gonna get started with an obvious statement. Things change. Think about it. You probably don't listen to the same music you did 3 years ago. How you dress is probably different than it was in the 5th grade. You look different than you did when you were a little kid. These are changes that are pretty much expected. No one expects to look the same way they did in elementary school. But there are also changes that are unexpected. Changes that feel like they come out of nowhere. And unlike changes in fashion trends and music, these types of changes can be a little bit more difficult to deal with. Maybe you've had a friend or a group of friends that have changed. Maybe you changed location. You moved to a different neighborhood, a town, or a new state. Maybe you had a pretty big injury. Unexpected changes have a way of disrupting our lives. It doesn't matter who you are, unexpected change happens to all of us. And because of that, we all need a sense of stability. We want something, a place, a person, or group that stays the same when nothing else feels safe and secure. For a lot of people, family is that thing. For others, well, family has never been that safe or secure place. But for all of us, there's the idea that family should be constant. Even if it's not, we want it to be. So when change happens in a family, sometimes it's way more difficult to deal with. Maybe you've experienced this. Maybe one of your parents got a new job and your whole family had to move. And now the routine of seeing your mom or dad has completely changed. Maybe a sibling went to college. While you're happy for them, the truth is it's changed how your family acts with each other. And you actually miss the normalcy of fighting over the bathroom or sharing clothes or the way your older sibling kind of kept things together. Maybe a parent passed. Whether it was expected because of an illness or totally unexpected, there's no real preparing for that kind of loss. Maybe you got a new sibling, and with the new baby brother or sister, the way you feel like you're treated is different. Sure, you're still loved, but you no longer get the attention that you're used to or that you want. Maybe your parents got divorced. You thought your parents would be together forever, and there didn't seem to be anything wrong, but then suddenly, they split up. No matter what our experiences with change, something about it happening in our families just makes it so much more difficult. And if avoiding change isn't possible, how do we get better at handling it? How do we navigate it without becoming bitter or resentful? How can we better prepare for it? When you look at the Bible, you might be surprised to see that a lot of the writers were helpful when it comes to dealing with change. In fact, the suspected writer of the Old Testament book Ecclesiastes, King Solomon, had a lot to say about change. Solomon was an ancient king of Israel, and God blessed him with incredible wisdom. In fact, at one point, another author in the Bible said that Solomon was wiser than everyone. Now, you're probably thinking, super cool, an ancient king from a place I've never been was super wise. But what does that have to do with change in my family? Well, I'm glad you asked. In a piece of scripture we're going to look at, Solomon is writing about some of the things he's observed in his lifetime. And one of those things was change. Check it out. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. It's a very poetic way of saying, everyone buckle up because change is coming. It is going to happen. Nothing stays consistent. The most consistent thing is change. The things you're experiencing today will look different tomorrow. This is the world we live in, so we might as well get used to it. Honestly, in some ways, this is low-key depressing. I would love to hear that there's a way I could make change less painful. Or really, I'd love a way that I could keep change from happening at all, but that's not what Solomon says. In fact, he's saying the exact opposite. He's letting us know that everything will change at some point or another. But the truth is that when we know things will change, both in our families and the world around us, we can be prepared to deal with it. Instead of fighting change and pretending like things will always stay the same, we can open our hands and give up control. God is fully aware of everything that changes in our lives. He knows that good and bad will show up and neither of those will last forever. But in this life of constant change, God also makes a promise to us. But unfortunately, the promise isn't that He's going to make all the difficulties go away. In the book of Isaiah, we learn about a message God had for His people. Most people believe that Isaiah was written during a time of trouble for the nation of Israel. They were either in captivity in Babylon or coming out of exile. But they had been forced to leave their homes and live in a land with people who didn't look like them or live their way of life. Everything that felt safe, secure, and stable all of a sudden wasn't. And in the midst of that, this is what God said to them. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Imagine the comfort that must have brought the people hearing it back then. When everything around them was changing, God wasn't. And the same is true for us. In every single moment and season of change, including family change, God will be with us. He is walking through the difficulty with us. We are never alone. God is never caught off guard by the change in our lives. And if He has promised to be with us, then that must be exactly what we need. We can't control the people in our families, right? And as much as we want our families to be stable and constant, it doesn't always happen. So, since we can't stop change and we can't control people, what can we do? Well, we can start by focusing on our mindset, our thinking, our attitude, and our perspective. We can change the way that we look at change. Think of it this way. When your family goes through hard times, your mindset can see you through. When someone in your family moves out, your mindset matters. When someone moves in, your mindset matters. You can't control the outside circumstances, but you can work on your attitude and perspective. You can remember that God is with you, even when they're not. Here's a few steps to help you work on it. Understand that change will happen. This is why that passage in Ecclesiastes is so powerful. There's a time for everything. Change is bound to happen. Understanding that doesn't make it easier to handle, but at least now we know that it's a reality of life that everybody deals with. The second, know that God is with you. Like Isaiah writes, whether you pass through the waters or walk through fire, God will never leave you alone. And whatever change you face in your family, God will be right there with you, helping you and comforting you. The third thing, trust that God can use the change to change you. God can use our time of change and adjustment to grow us in ways we may have never expected. God can do something in and through our time of change, but we have to think long term. However bad it feels right now, it won't feel that way forever. When we have a long-term view, we know there's something after this. We just might not see it yet. God isn't done yet. And if we begin to see change this way, we can embrace it as something that can take us somewhere good. Change has the potential to be something that causes us to grow, mature, and become more of who God designed us to be. Without question, change is difficult. a new season, a new house, a new town, a new stepmom, a new stepdad, a new normal, whatever it is, it's not easy, especially when it comes to family. But just know that you're not alone. You're not the only one dealing with change. And like Solomon said, it's bound to hit all of us. But you're not alone because God is with you. And you're not alone because you have a small group and community to talk to about all of this. And if you're having a particularly hard time dealing with a certain change in your life right now, don't be afraid to talk with your small group leader. When your family goes through rough waters, your mindset can see you through. So let's ask God for the strength and grace to help us get our mindsets in the right place. Radiant Youth, tonight has been incredible. And I know your time of small groups is going to be amazing. I hope this is your best Wednesday yet.